Well, welcome to Myth Busting with Keystone Wealth Partners. I'm your host, John Hagenson. As always, I'm the founder and managing director at Keystone Wealth Partners. Wanted to provide a little mini session here, podcast, pulling some excerpts from the radio show Myth Busting with Keystone Wealth Partners that was done on August 13th. I wanted to just pull some of the important topics related to what I'm hearing from clients, what prospective clients are talking about, what people are calling in and emailing from the radio show. I focused really on the 13th about the presidential election. What is its impact on you, on your money? If you're a client of Keystone Wealth Partners, what should you be thinking about? Should you be concerned with it? And I want to provide you some context and some data surrounding the presidential election, the history of presidential elections, and what it really means for your money. Because at the end of the day, nothing really matters about any of this other than what's the impact on it for you? What does it mean for your retirement? Are there adjustments you should be making? Are there things that you should be aware of? And again, I talked extensively about it on the radio show, but I wanted to just do a separate recording to provide you some quick hitters on what I discussed if you don't have a chance to listen to the full almost hour podcast of our radio show or not able to listen to the radio show live on 92.3 FM KTAR. You know, if you're like the majority of Americans, you're planning to change your investments based upon the presidential election, which makes me want to pull my hair out. But according to a survey completed by UBS of wealthy investors, 57% plan to reallocate their portfolios based upon the results of the election, which is probably more than either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton will garner in votes, but that's a topic for another show. But 25% in the study by UBS said that they're going to get out of the market entirely, depending on who wins. 9% have already made changes, and 5% have already sold out everything and went to cash, completely to cash. Oh, and by the way, only 19%, this was the part of the study that prompted me to do this podcast, this little mini podcast for you, is that 19% have talked to their financial advisors about the impact of the election on their plan. So most of you out there are trying to do it on your own. I want to make sure that if you're a client of ours, or regardless of who you work with, that you're able to get some context, get some information on this to help you do a great job with your money. So there are two primary scenarios for folks. Either, number one, they hate both candidates. I don't like Hillary, I don't like Donald, I'm concerned about it. I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm reallocating. Second scenario is they like one of the candidates, but they don't think they're going to win. I like Hillary, I think Trump's going to win. I like Trump, I think Clinton's going to win. But either way, you lose in that scenario and you're anxious. Do you feel like this? Are you feeling like this? You don't like either candidate, or you like one more than the other, you're not really sure if they're going to win. It's concerning to you. More importantly, are you concerned about what to do with your retirement plan related to it? And are you thinking this is unprecedented? Because a lot of the folks that I'm talking to are saying, John, I know, but I know we have, presidential elections every 4 years, but this is unprecedented. This is totally different. And by the way, if you've come to coaching, if you're a current client, you've heard me talk numerous times about the death and famous last words of a good, well-built retirement plan is this time is different. If you ever start by, well, I know the data shows this, and I know that this is what's happened over 90 years or 100 years, but this time is different. Now, obviously, there's always specific situations that are new, that are different, but nothing really is new. Over the last 90 years, think about it. We've had the Great Depression, multiple world wars, presidents being assassinated, terrorist attacks, double-digit inflation, market crashes, credit crisis. Remember Y2K when planes were going to fall out of the sky? Just literally going to be flying along and boom, drop out of the sky because we hit the new millennium. No, we really need to lean back on data and away from our emotions. So it's really not unprecedented. I mean, the same thing was what people were saying in 2012. I remember having this exact conversation with so many of you in 2012. In fact, Phoenix Marketing International, 5 months prior to the election in 2012, did a study that showed 90% of investors at that time said they plan to change their investments. In other words, we're just repeating what we do every single election cycle. Nothing's new here. Every election this happens. And how silly were the people in 2012? The stock market, what's it done? It's at all-time highs. Real estate has rebounded. So what's the lesson here? What can we learn from it? The market doesn't care what you think. Take the emotion out of it. That's why I'm studying right now at Stanford in strategic decision and risk management. You see, so much of the impact of whether you're successful with your money has nothing to do with whether Donald Trump gets elected or Hillary Clinton gets elected. We think it does. The media sensationalizes it and makes us think it does, but it doesn't. It's our attitude towards that. Remember, in a well-diversified portfolio, since 1926, there has never been a 10-year period where you've lost money. Ever. You have never, ever gone 10 years, opened your statement in year 11 if you're properly diversified, and had less money in year 11. It's never happened. If 30 years ago you had no idea what to do with your money, you put everything in the S&P 500, you would have made 10.35% per year. Now, that's not properly diversified. That's not a diversified portfolio did even better. But you know what the average American made? Just over 3.5% a year during that 30 years. And that's not on their bonds. That's not on their annuities. That's not on insurance. That's on their stock and stock mutual funds. 3.5% when the simplest, lowest cost, took no skill strategy, made over 10. You see, it's all behavioral. And here's the key point. If your favorite wins, you'll be highly optimistic. Here's where the behavior comes in. You'll be happy. You'll be much more likely to stay invested in the market. You'll be thrilled about the prospects of our nation. And as a result, you'll be more likely to increase your allocation to stock and stock mutual funds. You'll probably even get more risky, is what the data shows us. On the other hand, if the person you don't want to win, if the political party you do not align with is elected, you'll be less likely to take risks with your portfolio. You'll be much more likely to reduce the stock exposure you have in your portfolio. The Social Science Research Network discovered this to be the very thing that occurred in their analysis in February of 2012. They went through the returns from Bush 41, Clinton, and Bush 43, and they discovered that investors who aligned with the party in the White House earned 2.7% more than those who didn't. So what I mean by that is if you're a Republican and you vote Republican and you believe in the Republican monetary policies and all those things, when a Republican got elected, when either of the Bushes were elected, you made almost 3% more per year on your money than your friend who's a Democrat. Now, isn't that silly? The market did the exact same thing. But because you aligned, because your attitude towards that president was different, you made almost 3% more, 2.7%. In the same way, when President Clinton was in office, Democrats made almost 3% more per year than Republicans, even though it was the exact same market. So you're still not convinced? You still think this time's different? I'm going to provide you with even more research dating back to the 40s. An advisor I really respect, Rick Edelman, and his firm did exhaustive research on this. And what they analyzed was the combination, like what happens if a Democratic president's elected versus a Republican president? And then also, what about the branches of Congress? What are our returns when we have a Democratic president and a Republican Congress, or a split Congress and a Democratic president or a Republican president, right? So they looked at all the combinations. There's 8 combinations. Going back to 1948, 3 of them were really so infrequent that the sample size is so small, it's immaterial. But I'm going to look at 4 or 5 of the other scenarios, go through those with you, of the 8 combinations. So again, what we're looking at is, RDD, DDR, DDD, RRR of the branches of Congress as well as the president and what the impact was. So the worst scenario since 1948 was when we had a Republican president and Democrats controlling both the House and the Senate. That was the worst. We had 22 years of that scenario, Republican president, Democrats controlling both the House and the Senate. The average rate of return was 8.4% per year. That's the worst scenario. It was still 8.4% per year. On the flip side, Democratic president and Republicans controlling both, 18% per year rates of return. Now, how about on the clean sweeps? All Democrats, 15% per year market returns. All Republicans, 18% rates of return per year. In other words, folks, it doesn't matter. Why are you freaking out? Well, I know partly is because of the silly rhetoric by both parties. If you watch Fox News all day, they're going to tell you that if Hillary Clinton's elected, the world will end. America's dead. In the same way, if you're watching CNBC all day, they're going to say that if Donald Trump gets in, he's going to start nuclear war with the entire world, and America will never be the same. Folks, we need to pump the brakes. We need to pause. And related to your financial situation, you can see here from the history of the markets, from the data, that we have had every combination you can think of, every different type of personality you can think of in the White House, and different parties controlling the branches of Congress at different times. We've been okay. And remember, anything that you have exposed to the stock market needs to have a 10-year time horizon. If you need to take a bunch of withdrawals from your stocks in 3 years, you shouldn't be in stocks. That is highly speculative and risky. We've seen that with scenarios like 2001 and 2008. But as long as you have a lifelong game plan, you have a long-term time horizon. And actually, if you're working with us, you rebalance your accounts in down markets, right? Because 2 out of every 3 years are up on average since 1926. 1 out of every 3 years are down. If you have a strategy like we put together where when the market drops, you actually use it as a buying opportunity and rebalance, short-term volatility is nothing more than your friend. And the monies you need within 10 years, you need to have some different types of investments that are safer, that are more stable, that are less volatile, that you can sell or create income from while you allow your stocks time to grow. If you have that mindset, you have a long time horizon. Because by the way, the absolute longest that any of these candidates are going to be in office is 8 years. Most likely, they'll only be in office for 4 years. Most of you will be investing long beyond the next 4 years. Let's keep that long time horizon. I hope this gives you a little perspective and renews your optimism for achieving your goals. Thank you for listening to this myth-busting podcast on the presidential election. Hope you have a great week.